a slave opened one gate. Rome fell in hours. You stand near the Salarian Gate on the night of August 24, in the year 410. Torches gutter along Rome's ancient walls. Below you, hands move in the dark. Roman slaves, according to the historian Zosimus, drawing back the bolts from the inside. Outside, an army waits. It is led by a king named Alaric. Rome has not fallen to a foreign force in almost 800 years, not since Gallic raiders broke through in 387 BC. Tonight that streak ends. Who is this man at the gate? Alaric is not some stranger from beyond the map. He served in the Roman army. He commanded Gothic troops under a Roman general. He fought Rome's wars before he ever marched against Rome itself. That contradiction is the whole story, and it starts decades earlier on a riverbank. In 376, a wave of Gothic refugees reached the Danube River, the empire's northern border. The Huns were pushing west out of the steppe, and the Goths asked Rome for shelter. Roman officials let them cross, then cheated them, selling starving families dog meat at criminal prices. Desperation turned to revolt. 2 years later, at Adrianople in 378, Gothic forces destroyed a Roman army and killed the Eastern Emperor Valens himself. Rome had a permanent armed Gothic presence inside its borders now, and no easy way to remove it. Alaric grew up inside that unresolved war. By the 390s, he saw Gothic soldiers fighting for Rome under Stilicho, a half-Vandal general who effectively ran the Western Empire for the boy Emperor Honorius. Alaric wanted what any Roman officer wanted: land for his people, official rank, steady pay. He asked for it again and again. Rome kept stalling. Why would an empire that survived Hannibal, that buried Julius Caesar, that ruled from Britain to Syria, take a Gothic general seriously? Because by 400 it could no longer afford not to. Then, the one man holding this fragile arrangement together disappeared. In 408, Emperor Honorius, cornered by court rivals whispering about treason, had Stilicho executed. Rome's Gothic troops did not stay loyal to a government that had just killed their patron. Roman mobs then slaughtered the wives and children of Gothic soldiers stationed in Italian cities. Thousands of trained fighters, suddenly without families, without pay, without protection, rode straight to Alaric's camp. He did not need to raise an army. Rome built it for him. Here is the turn that most people miss. Alaric did not want to destroy Rome. He wanted Rome to let him in. In 408, he marched on the city for the first time and simply blockaded it, cutting off the grain ships from Africa that fed 1 million people. He did not storm the walls. He negotiated a ransom instead. Thousands of pounds of gold and silver, silk robes, and, strangely, 3,000 pounds of pepper, a spice so valuable it was counted like treasure. He lifted the siege once paid. A year later, still waiting for Honorius to grant his people formal status, Alaric surrounded Rome again and installed a puppet emperor, a Roman senator named Priscus Attalus, hoping to rule through Roman institutions rather than against them. This was a man trying to buy his way into the empire, not burn it down. But in Ravenna, behind marshland and canals that made the city nearly impossible to besiege, Emperor Honorius refused every offer Alaric sent him. Ravenna had become the western capital in 402 precisely because it was so hard to attack. Honorius could afford to say no. He said no to Attalus. He said no to a Gothic homeland. He said no even when Alaric, according to the historian Zosimus, lowered his demands to almost nothing. Just some land, some grain, some recognition. Each refusal cost Rome more than Honorius understood. So Alaric marched a third time in the late summer of 410. This was no longer about ransom. Every door had closed on him, one at a time, by the same government that once paid his soldiers. What was left to negotiate? That is why, on the night of August 24, the Salarian Gate opened from within. For 3 days, Alaric's forces moved through a city that had considered itself untouchable since before the birth of Christ. Fires burned through parts of the city, including the old Senate house. Yet Alaric gave a specific order that survives in the writings of the Christian historian Orosius: spare the churches. Alaric and much of his army were Christian, followers of an Arian branch of the faith, and he declared St. Peter's Basilica a sanctuary. Romans who fled there were largely left alone. Among the captives taken during those 3 days was Galla Placidia, half-sister of Emperor Honorius, who would later marry Alaric's own successor, Ataulf. News of the sack reached a scholar named Jerome, translating scripture in a cave in Bethlehem, roughly 1,400 miles away. He wrote that words failed him, that the city which had once conquered the entire world had now itself been conquered. In North Africa, a bishop named Augustine of Hippo began fielding a harder question from grieving Romans. If Rome was eternal, protected by the old gods or by the new Christian one, how could barbarians have walked through its gates? His answer took years to write. It became a book called The City of God, one of the most influential texts in Western thought, born directly from 3 days of fire and fear inside Rome's walls. Alaric never got to enjoy what he took. Within months, he was leading his people south, planning to cross into North Africa for its grain supply, when he fell sick and died before the end of 410. According to the historian Jordanes, his men diverted an entire river near modern Cosenza, buried their king in the dry riverbed with his treasure, then let the water flow back over him. The workers who dug the grave were killed so the location would die with them. No one has ever found it. The gate that opened for one night could never be closed again. Rome would stand for decades more, but the idea of Rome as untouchable was gone the moment those bolts slid back, and empires, like walls, only need to fail once.